Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's video is going to be a review on the Morphe, the Jaclyn Hill palette. Now, this is a palette that I bought a few weeks ago now, and it was completely out of stock, but the restock date is today, July 18th at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is also 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for those of you who are not able to get your hands on it on the first launch, which I think it sold out in about 3 hours, which is pretty impressive because Morphe, when it's a Jaclyn Hill like fueled product, tends to sell out like under an hour. However, the restock is happening now and I don't know how much stock they're going to have because it is a limited edition palette. So I thought I'd get this review up, and if you want it and you're interested in it, get it today because there's no chance that it's going to be available tomorrow. All right, so a few things up front about this palette. This is a 35 eyeshadow palette, as is standard for Morphe. It does retail for $38 US, and shipping is not the cheapest. In Canada, I split the shipping cost with two other girls. We each got a palette. And I think in total, my palette came out to about 70 bucks Canadian. Now, I have heard other people saying that they spend about 100 Canadian, maybe 110, but I think that's if you're ordering individually, which most people would be. So you should probably take this palette into account as being actually 100 bucks. Which is a little bit steep, I'm not gonna lie. It is a huge palette. There are 35 shadows, but it is still Morphe quality. It's not something like Visor, where you know the pigment is like made in small batches and the quality is gonna be consistent across the board. So I'm gonna get into things I like about this and things I don't like, and based on that, you can figure out if you want to pick it up. So to talk a little bit about the exterior packaging, this palette is going to get filthy really quickly. It is already getting like powder stains on it. It's not one of those quick erase type product packaging where you know that the colors are going to come off. And honestly, the printing on it is really cheap looking. Like on the inside of the palette, if you look at the inscription that she has that says, "This palette is dedicated to all my loving subscribers," it's like slightly out of sync with where the black lines and the white lines should be. So keep that in mind. This is not like a super luxurious product packaging at all, especially since there's no mirror, which is a little bit frustrating. And not to mention the fact that there are no shade names anywhere on this palette. And I received one of the palettes that didn't have the shade name insert sheets. I believe it was like a separate like plastic or paper that you could like tape inside your product, which I would love because like there's nothing on the back, there's nothing on the front, and there's nothing on the inside to say what the shade names are, which is really weird because you know that this is basically a YouTube based product, and all of us who are going to be talking about this product are going to want to refer to the shade names. But we can't do that because they're nowhere to be found. And Jaclyn did do a video describing each shade and why she named it that way, so it seems really bizarre to not have actual shade names anywhere. There are 35 shadows and it does lean very warm. This doesn't surprise me for Jaclyn. She is a very red, warm, smoky-eyed person. But for people who are not keen on warm tones, I don't think you're gonna find this very helpful to you. I love, personally, all these kind of cranberry, orange, red tones. Those are always right up my alley. But that being said, I find like there's not actually enough variety amongst some of these shades. When I first got this palette, the look I wanted to do was pretty coppery, rosy kind of a look. And I went straight for these three shades up here. And I didn't like them. And I was kind of like, oh no, like, I've just bought this palette. The first look I did, I wasn't happy with because I ended up using one and I didn't like the look of that, and I layered that on top and I didn't like the look of that, and I added another one. And all three of those shades were just kind of not the consistency I was expecting of them. However, things got much better after the first use because then I was like, okay, leave the rosy stuff aside, go straight to the color. So the color is really restricted to this quad right down here. And the look that I came up with is one I've recreated for this video just to show you how much it's astonishingly beautiful. I was so floored with these shades. I could not believe just how smoothly they went on the lids. And it was quite a stark like contrast between how well I thought these ones did not perform. So I have this one on the lid, this one through the crease, and then this darker, honestly, some people make it look blue, some people make it look purple. To me, it's kind of right in the middle, and I put that directly in my outer corner. I think these are the best colors in the entire palette, and I wish they had done more in terms of colors. The slightly frustrating thing with this though is that these colors are gorgeous, but you don't have a lot of things to pair them with. You can kind of dip into this dark forest green here, and this one's matte, and then this one is shimmery. But that's it, and these are not the kind of colors that you would tend to pair with warm looks. Like maybe at best I would take like the purple with one of the orange red shadows and make a look out of that. But in general, if you're using this quad of colors, that's where you're restricted. You can't really utilize much of the rest of the palette. So moving aside from the colored quadrant down here, the rest of the shadows are a wide variety of shimmers and mattes, but again, they are still very much in that warm tone. Another thing that I found really bizarre about this palette is that there is no matte cream shade. Both of these two up here are shimmery. One is slightly cooler toned, another one is warmer. But that's overkill. Like, they really could have put a matte cream shade in here. I get why they didn't. Jaclyn pretty much always uses a shimmery highlight on her brow bone. But I don't feel like most people do that. So I've had to go back to doing a shimmery brow bone color, which is fine, but I feel like it's, for a palette that has 35 colors in it, to not have a matte cream shade is just really bizarre, especially since there's a matte black. Like, why wouldn't you just do a matte cream? I do really enjoy the colors in this sort of like cranberry area right here. I feel like those are really, really nice, and it's a little bit repetitive having like a bright brick and a deep brick and then a medium tone brick shade, but they are really nice to use, and I am always happy when I see more red tones in a palette, because it means that, you know, people are going to start experimenting a little bit more with their makeup. And years ago, you couldn't even find red eyeshadow in a palette, and now it's pretty commonplace. So I feel like I've said quite a few negatives about this product, which is just me kind of nitpicking about it, because in the end, I kind of did spend close to $100 on this palette, and for something that is private labeled predominantly, even though these shadows claim to be made specially for this palette and they were pressed at different like strengths so that you could get the most out of each shadow, I still feel like this should not have been that expensive. I did watch one video that said that if you were to go buy this at the Morphe store in California and paid just that price without paying for shipping and customs fees, which we did end up with, then that would be a good purchase, because the product would be at its original price tag without all the extra charges on top. And I agree with that. I think paying 40 bucks for this is good. But when you have to say that so many people paid $70 to $100 for it, I don't think the quality matches that kind of price tag. Now, that being said, I do enjoy it. I actually find that the colors spread really easily, they blend nicely, but it is a little bit hit and miss between some of the shadows. Like I said, I did not enjoy these three up here, and some of the shadows I just feel like are too similar in color to have warranted having those shades. Like these two here, they don't look any different on the lid at all. Neither do these two. And for such a small difference between the shadows, it's like you could have included that matte cream shade, or, you know, a little bit more color. So I can't really decide for you if you are going to think that paying that much for a palette is worth it. It is a very steep price tag, and we all have our breaking points. I bought it and I like it, and I really enjoy Jaclyn Hill, so I wanted to support her. And I was also curious to find out if I would like the quality of this palette, because in the past I have not been a fan of Morphe eyeshadows. I've just had really bad experiences with chalkiness and just no blending, but this palette was not like that at all. So for me, I'm happy to have bought it. Not so happy about the price tag, but I'm not regretful. All right, that's gonna be it. That's my final thoughts on the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill palette. Let me know if you picked this palette up and what you thought about it, or if you're planning on getting it during the restock. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.